Hello everyone, and welcome to day 7 of our Doubtful Sound trip. Yesterday we paddled up this river at high tide, and we're now heading down at close to low tide. We're about 3 kilometres up, and the difference is huge, with this entire rapid having appeared with the tide receding. There's a lot of dead trees in this river, which seem to end up at some very inconvenient spots in the rapids. What we're paddling past right now is a very large fallen tree in a very annoying spot in the river. I'm the 4th person down, so the rest of the group have actually gone down ahead of me and then radioed back to let me know what the best path to take is to get down. And that was me on the radio reporting back to Bruce, the last person down, the best path to take.
The other option is just walk the boat down.
And with that done, we can carry on down the river. That sort of boulder bank you can see ahead of us is another feature that has appeared with the falling tide. And yesterday we paddled up a very different, much calmer and much deeper river. And this rapid that's ahead of us now is another feature that has appeared with the falling tide. Complete with fallen trees that are making life difficult for us. Fortunately, this is quite an easy rapid to navigate in a big sea kayak. It's a very deep rapid with quite a bit of flow going down, so lots of water, lots of clearance. You'll see just up here I get the nose of the boat into a backwater. What happens in a situation like that, you get your nose in quite slow water and you get the tail of the boat in the fast moving rapid, and it can really make life difficult for you in terms of keeping the boat on course, which is why you see those big reverse strokes to keep the boat on course. That was the second rapid that we had to shoot down.
Follow Dennis, Celia. Follow Dennis. Follow Dennis. Go!
After this, through the middle part of the trip down the river, we had a very relaxing paddle and in some very deep water, so we didn't have to worry too much about picking our path or anything like that until we got right down towards the end. And this is just a really relaxing type of paddle to do.
I mean, they could have dragged it over another setup.
What you see here is a inflatable.
Yeah, I think they're also hunting as well, by the looks of it.
What you see here is an inflatable dinghy, which belonged to a group of hunters that we saw as we were preparing to leave. They came up past where we were camped, walking up the riverbank. So they've brought that boat up quite a long way up the river. I think we're about 2 kilometres up at this point.
Gilly, please know I am, of course, recording this. I am, of course, recording this.
Just over on the right there you saw a bit of a splash, which I think was a trout catching something.
You're quite shallow there. Second. You're quite shallow there. Okay.
This whole paddle was just a really calm, relaxing way to spend some time, and I'm sort of hoping to share that feeling with you by doing this much longer video with a minimum number of cuts, just to enjoy this sort of peaceful float down the river with me. So on my left with the yellow boat is Bruce in a southern skewer, and then with the red boat and the Greenland paddle is Dennis in another Tasman Express, same model of boat as mine.
I think I don't know if it was you or Peter, but every time one of you rolled over, all I could hear was this scrunching noise for like 5 minutes. Yeah. Yeah, it was a decent night's sleep, all things considered. Actually, yeah, my X-Bed down light air mattress is definitely more comfortable than the bunk mattresses.
So what I'd found is that sleeping in my tent with my
I had long thermals on, so I wasn't too worried.
with my rather expensive camping mattress was actually more comfortable than sleeping on the mattresses in the hut, which isn't particularly surprising when you consider the difference in price between what my air mattress cost and what a mattress in a typical dock hut is worth. What I'm doing there is just tucking that line up behind the sail, because it has a tendency to drop down and drag in the water, which creates a small amount of drag, but more than anything else is just a bit annoying.
Oh, like
That's what I was doing with the paddle there.
basically just up to like the first pool above those rapids that we can see. So just partway down them. I saw a big sort of splash over that side of the water. I didn't see the fish, but I do suspect it was a trout grabbing something.
So we'd begun the day today with a walk up the rapids that we were camped next to,
Turn my radio back off.
and
So the problem I've got, I can receive, but I can only transmit for a brief period of time. Is it? Yeah. Well, they transmit at 1 watt or low now, which is a fair amount of power to pull out of a couple of trip lanes. So I have to make very, very brief radio calls.
so we'd begun the day with a brief walk up the rapids next to where we'd camped, and I believe it was early afternoon by the time we got on the water. And what I was just discussing there was the fact that I've been having some problems with my radio, running its batteries down quite quickly. Just on our right here, I can see what looks like a bit of a clearing, or a bit of a gap in the trees.
It looks like all in here.
I later realised that was actually a tributary stream coming down, but it looks like there's a gap and a clearing that we could have possibly camped at. So I'm about to back up and have a look at that.
I'm going to quickly jump out and have a look at that. I'm going to have a quick look. It looks like there's a clearing here.
Now as I'm pushing off, listen very carefully, and you get to hear a nice little clicking sound from my paddle.
Shit.
That is why you don't push off on ground with a wing paddle. They don't like being pushed backwards with, especially on a hard surface. And what I'd just done was flex the paddle blade towards me and put a crack in the carbon fibre. Fortunately, this didn't break the paddle completely, and I was able to use it for the rest of the trip and repair it when I get home. But that was a bit of time down the drain, and just a lesson in why you don't do that. Interestingly enough, that's actually the second time I've done that. I've done it to the other blade previously, so at least now they're matched. And then it was back down the river to join up with the rest of the group. So as I was saying before, very much taking our time. We didn't have anywhere to be in any great hurry, and we were just enjoying the day and enjoying one of the calmer days on the trip. So I might just take a minute to tell you a bit about our equipment. So as you can see written on the bow, the boat that I'm in is a Tasman Express, made by Quality Kayaks in New Zealand. And interestingly enough, everyone on this trip had a Quality Kayaks or QK boat. There was two of us, myself and Dennis, that had Tasman Expresses, which is about a 5.2 metre long sea kayak, laid up with a mixture of Kevlar and carbon fibre for a mixture of strength and flexibility. And the other three members of the group, Bruce, Celia and Peter, all had QK Southern Skewers. And as I mentioned before, the paddle that I'm paddling with is a carbon fibre wing paddle with a crank shaft handle. The wing is a paddle that gives you really good efficiency and really good power. They are not ideal for bracing or steering the boat with, although you can manage. And the paddle in fact was bought from AliExpress in China. Another somewhat unusual feature that everyone in the group had on their boats was the sail. So my sail was actually custom made for me by a sail maker. It's 1 square metre surface area. And I then had to go and buy the mast. This is made by Kilwell, who normally manufacture things like fishing rods. Buy all the different fittings. I had to reinforce the deck of the boat. There's a couple of layers of glass fibre underneath that sail fitting because that sail creates a lot of downward force on the boat under load as it's pulling against the guy lines. And the rest of the group had sails by the Australian manufacturer Flat Earth, and they had, I think theirs were 0.8 square metres surface area. So not as big or as powerful as mine, but they were also much newer to kayak sailing, so perhaps a good thing that they had a smaller sail, and I started off with a smaller sail before I bought this one. And our destination for the day was the Rum River, which is further down the arm that we were staying in. So the previous day we'd paddled up Bradshaw Sound, which is part of the other half of Doubtful Sound, and then gone up Kayak Arm and up the Camelot River. So we're at the moment paddling down the Camelot River, and later on the day we would paddle down Kayak Arm.
So we're at a rising tide right now, aren't we? We're at a rising tide at the moment, aren't we?
Around the back of McDonnell Island, a wee way up the Rum River. You couldn't paddle anywhere near as far up the Rum as we had on this trip, and then we would camp at the mouth of the Rum River. We found quite a nice spot there.
Around midday, 1 PM would have been peak low. About 1 PM would have been peak low, wouldn't it? I think this might actually tell me the tides, but here I am.
And this boulder bank you see on the right here is another feature that simply wasn't there when we came up. So we came up in a much deeper river with a much higher tide. A very different river to what we're seeing now. So to our left is Dennis, and further to the left of him is Celia. And if you look ahead of me, you'll see some tall trees on an island. This is actually, at high tide at least, an island, and the river flows on both sides of it, which we'll have a bit of a discussion on the water about later on. So if you look to both the left and the right of where I'm pointing right now,
2.3 kilometres already.
Yeah, we've paddled 2.3 k's and we still can't even see the ocean.
Oh, 8.0 in a straight line.
And if you look to either side of me, you'll see flat open area, and this is where the river flows. So me and Peter actually paddled in from the right, whereas I believe the rest of the group came up from the left. I was actually behind the group on the way up because I'd done a bit of scouting around for camping sites, etc. And what I was talking to the group about before,
It actually shows this as being an island out at the entrance. You can get around. So, peak eye. We come in that way from the high tide. I'm sure we did. I'm sure we came in that way.
yep, so to our right is that passage in, and then to the left is the way that we're going out. So the main sound of Doubtful Sound is,
Sure, 'cause me and Peter.
from memory, around 500 metres deep. And you look at the hills on either side of us, we have these really steep hills coming down, very abruptly turning into a flat floodplain. And that shows just how much material has been brought down this river over the years to fill it in to this level. There's a ridiculous amount of dead trees in this river the whole way down. And up ahead of us now, we're getting into some very, very shallow water, which is going to take some careful navigation to make our way down without scraping our boats. And if you watch what Dennis does here, he's about to have a bit of a navigational error, and is going to end up making contact with the river bottom. I'd like you to keep a close eye on his rudder, and also just listen, as you're going to hear the sound of it hitting rocks fairly soon.
Yep. Yep, left. Down going left. Dennis is going to the military left.
Now watch that rudder. You could hear that tinking sound as his rudder was hitting rocks. That was my rudder being pulled up, so the same thing doesn't happen to me.
Dennis is beached. Beached ass.
You can see another boat just over to the right there that's been pulled up on that bank.
Yeah, follow me, Peter's got. Oh, I'm scratching. Peter, you want to keep going left, head towards that tree a bit more.
I just redone the gel coat on this boat before this trip too. Slightly annoying.
Crunchy, crunchy. Nope. Only just floating though. So yeah, go right up close to that tree there. Oh, there's one of the big tour boats coming up.
And that was one of the Real Journeys catamarans that we can see from memory. This video was a bit of an experiment, just to see if I can get people want to watch a much longer, less edited version of the paddle.
Follow me. I think this way is the best way, guys.
It's not often that you get this much continuous good footage on a trip, but if people enjoy watching this, I can get a good long uninterrupted take. I might make a few more of them. So if you can see that shadow of the boat, we're in some very shallow water still here, and sort of trying to pick my way down using things like the colour of the water, what the surface of the water looks like, whether you can see ripples being kicked up underneath it, or if it's dead flat, it usually means it's quite deep water, and when you start seeing ripples on top, it quite often means there's rocks underneath. And of course the colour is another quite big indicator of what sort of water depth you're paddling in. So it's quite a knack and quite a learned skill to pick your way down a river like this.
into quite a deep part here.
And here we have yet more fallen trees that we have to navigate around. I can hear someone's rudder hitting the ground. I don't know if it was me or someone else. Over on the left you can see a sailing yacht. We actually met up with these people at the end of the trip when we were getting shuttled back over Wilmot, and they were quite curious as to where we'd gone because they'd seen us paddle up the previous day, didn't see us the rest of that day, and then saw us paddle out the next day. So they were quite keen to know, had we found somewhere to stay, what was it like, would we recommend it. On my left with the red boat is Peter, and ahead of him is Bruce. I don't think I've introduced yet on this video. I think that was my rudder coming down, that thump you just heard. It might have been coming up, I can't remember. Here comes another bloody fallen tree. And I actually rubbed up against that one. Now something else you'll see a little bit further up was all these bubbles coming out of the seabed. I'm not quite sure what was causing this. I'd very much like to find out actually. One theory I had was perhaps rotting material buried in the silt. You see these streams of bubbles coming up, and they did very much smell like sulphur. So I'm not sure if it was decomposing material or gas escaping or anything like this from the ground, anything like that. But as you can see, quite a lot of bubbles coming up. And I don't know what was causing it. And then just up here you'll see the end of this kind of fan of material that's come out the river, the floodplain I suppose you'd call it. And we very abruptly go from sort of waist deep water into very deep, and we are in the Sound proper. On our way past, we also poked our nose into Precipice Cove. We didn't paddle up it at all, but we sort of swung in and had a wee look on our way past. Very beautiful area that we would have explored if we had more time. After this, we paddled through the narrow passage between McDonnell Island and the mainland. briefly paddled up the Rum River and then found a place to camp at the mouth of the Rum River, and that was our day. Thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoyed the video.